RealSim airstrike. The multiple confirmed KIA. Good gun run. Solid effect. Good effect.
He's set. Go! Go! Tell me while I move!
This is 1-6 Romeo. All able elements advanced. Moving left to right. Moving left to right.
Gang, gang, Gucci gang.
That's right. What's up, guys? This is Doc Lamau, and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be an AAR style, or after action report style, video for Operation Hammer Forged. This is basically part 2 of my 40-hour Milsim loadout breakdown video, so if you haven't watched that yet, you might want to go ahead and check that out before we get further into this video, since that's going to give you context as to what we're going to be talking about here. I'll link it somewhere on the screen for you. So this video will be the after action report, and then we'll have separate videos coming for you very soon with gameplay highlights. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll have 2 gameplay highlight videos within the next 2 weeks on the channel. So this was my first RealSim event, and I'm super pumped to tell you guys about it. This was structured as a continuous 40-hour event, but at the same time, everything kind of happened in 4 separate phases. We infilled Friday night, and we took contact along the main road, so we had to drop rucks and start fighting almost immediately. I don't have a way to record any nighttime footage right now, so hopefully we'll get that going in the near future. But both teams stayed out super late that night fighting each other. The next morning, we set out on a patrol and took contact later on during that patrol, and we got wiped out for the most part. The next mission lasted the rest of the day. That one started out with me being in contact with a pilot over Firesnet, right over the radio. And all of a sudden, his aircraft gets shot out of the air. Like, you could hear the sirens going off in his quote-unquote cockpit. I don't know how they made it sound so real over the radio like that. They probably had, like, I'm imagining a Bluetooth speaker playing sound effects near his phone microphone or something like that. But we had to go ahead and track him down and lots more. So that night we did a special forces style raid on the main compound on the AO, and that was freaking sweet. Like, I really wish I had footage of that, but I don't, like I said. So the next day after that raid, we held the compound, and then the enemy team tried to attack us, and we had to defend the compound. So that's a short recap of kind of what happened during that event, just to give you some extra context. So that being said, let's go ahead and kick things off, and we're going to cover what worked and what didn't work with all the stuff that I brought with me to sustain myself in the field for 40 hours. After that, we'll cover things that I liked about the event itself and any constructive criticism I may have. I'm just going to put some B-roll footage up on the screen for you so you have something to watch while we're talking here. So let's go ahead and start talking about everything that worked. And I'll tell you right now, overall, I am very pleased. Basically, everything worked very, very well. I ended up using everything I brought with me, and I'll tell you what, I didn't get any insect bites, and I'm sure the permethrin treatment that I did before we left helped a lot with that. Let's talk about the airsoft gun real quick. My VFC Avalon M4A1 was a complete champ. I never had any issues with it like usual. Never even had to tighten down that castle nut on the buffer tube like I was talking about previously. I never had to break out that lower receiver. I never had to swap out the battery even because it's a 3000 milliamp lithium ion battery. And as the RTO/JTAC role, I didn't have relatively as many firefights as the rest of the guys, right? I was usually standing next to the platoon leader in the back of the formation, so that's to be expected. But yeah, no issues with the airsoft gun per usual. Very happy with that. Let's talk about the footwear real quick. My Salomon Quest 4D Gore-Tex boots came in clutch at this event. My feet did get pretty sweaty per usual, and yes, I'm sure using a more breathable pair of boots would have helped with that, but I did at one point slip down a steep ledge and my feet slid into the creek that runs down the middle of the AO. Whew. So had I not been wearing the Gore-Tex boots, my feet would have been soaked for the rest of that mission. And let me tell you, that mission went on for another 3 hours or so after that happened. So I guess I owe a big thank you to my boots for keeping my feet nice and dry. Thank you, Gore-Tex boots. Continuing on about my feet, because I'm sure you guys love hearing me talk about my feet, right? My blister kit and overall foot care system did come in clutch. Did come in clutch as well. I went through each and every pair of socks I brought with me to this event, and it was hot and sunny during the day. So being able to clean my feet with those dude wipes and apply fresh foot powder inside a fresh pair of socks and a little bit inside the boots was such a wonderful feeling. Like, I can't even talk about it too much. It was so nice. I also went through some of those NextCare waterproof band-aids I was talking about. I used those to wrap the toes that were rubbing together and creating hot spots on my left foot. Both of my feet were blister-free by the end of the event, so I'd say this system overall worked very well. All right, we need to talk about the radio, because I was issued a radio for my RTO JTAC role, and I knew before I left that I wanted to have 2 radios. So I brought with me my own Baofeng radio. My plan was to use that for the squad channels, and then use my issued radio for the command and fires channels. So I brought my Baofeng UV9R Pro for squad channels, and I wrongfully assumed what kind of radio they were going to issue me for my role. I was thinking like a Prick 152 radio, or like something along that size. Like, right, have you seen those? Maybe you've seen those TCA Prick 152 clone radios from China, and those are really cool. And I thought I was going to get something issued that size, but no, I got something a lot bigger than that, and frankly way cooler. They handed me a Prick 117 Golf radio clone, and I forget who made that clone. I think it's by FCS. But yeah, for those who are unfamiliar with the Prick 117 Golf radios, it's a man pack radio, guys. These things are bulky and they are heavy. I was not prepared to carry this radio for an entire event. Thankfully, the beaver tail pouch on my Eagle Yote pack had plenty of room to hold the radio, but that pouch, it has no structure to it. It's basically a mesh bag attached to the assault pack. This wasn't a terrible solution. It did work. It carried the radio, and it never had any rips or tears or anything, but it wasn't ideal, and it wasn't very comfortable. So yeah, take note. If you're thinking about signing up as an RTO/JTAC role for an upcoming RealSim event, be prepared to carry a man pack radio. It's super fun, it's super cool, but just make sure you're thinking through how you're going to carry that thing for most of the 40 hours. Moving on to the night vision. Man, I loved using that PVS-14 with the L3 Harris tube in it. This was my first time running nods, like I said in the last video, but yeah, it was so much fun. I had no problem navigating through the woods in the middle of the night, after I got used to it, of course, but other dudes had their fancy binocular setups, and I'm over here with just a binocular, and I was able to keep up with them. We'd be climbing over fallen trees and logs and stuff, like through the woods, because we didn't do a lot of walking along the main roads. We tried to be sneaky and walk through the woods. But yeah, I had no problems. And I think that speaks volumes to just how good the L3 Harris Gen 3 tubes are. And now I'm spoiled. This isn't probably going to be good in the long run. When I'm shopping for my own night vision one day, I'm going to be thinking about that L3 Harris tube. It is what it is, but I had a great time using it. And real quick, I want to talk about Ultimate Night Vision, the rental company that we went through for those who rented nods for this event. Todd is the owner. I had multiple phone calls with him. He is such a great guy. He said he's been in the business for something like over 20 years. He really knows his stuff. He answered all my questions, and he was happy to answer all my questions. When you go to the website and you go to rent night vision through him, they have multiple different types of night vision you can get. They have also multiple different types of thermal units you can get. They've got everything. And I also liked the part where I didn't have to pick up my rental unit at the AO. He actually sent it to my house, and it arrived a day before I had to leave. So that was really nice. I got to play with it and set it all up and practice with it at home before going to the event. That was awesome. I really loved that. I got to go in my backyard and try it out and look at the stars, right? That's always fun. I got to practice clearing some rooms in my house as well. It was a good time. So I highly recommend renting night vision. If you're thinking about it, just do it. All right, moving on to my ear pro. I brought my Peltor Contact 5s. Those worked great as usual. There was lots of blink fire at this event, and pyro was limited due to the venue's restrictions. Camp Atterbury was the venue, which is owned by the same entity that owns the MUTC, which is the Indiana National Guard, and they aren't exactly pyro friendly anymore for whatever reason. But anyways, there was definitely a lot of blink fire, so my ears were thanking me for bringing those Peltor Contact 5s. Regarding the poncho shelter system and my rain layer, I never had to use them because it never rained. This was a very dry event, but hey, there's always the principle of it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? So that's always important. Never forget that. But yeah, didn't have to use those things. Another thing that worked really well was my helmet light, that Streamlight Compact 2. It came in clutch many times. Whenever it was dark and I needed to find something in my ruck, I could use the red lens and look around hands-free. Maybe a headlamp is a better solution, but I had no issue with throwing on my helmet real quick to use the light hands-free when I needed to. But when I didn't need the hands-free option, I just go ahead and disconnected it because it has that QD mount. So whenever I needed like a normal flashlight, I guess you could call it, that worked just as well. So it also worked great as a deadlight since it can change to that blue color very easily. So between that and that little night core strobe on the top of the helmet, I had no problems with getting overshot or anything at nighttime. Moving on to what did not work, let's talk about how I attached my assault pack to my rucksack. I really didn't like this system at all. It did the job, but it was flat out painful to detach and reattach the assault pack. I showed you guys in that previous video how it works. Well, based on where I positioned the main buckle attachment on the rucksack, I couldn't get my hands on it without removing the brain of the pack first. It slowed me down, it made me frustrated, and yeah, it just wasn't ideal. Also, the shot cord I used to hold the assault pack against the front of the rucksack was not a good choice of material. I would have been better off using 550 cord instead because the shot cord, being stretchy, allowed the assault pack to get all lopsided when I'd throw the rucksack on. I had to ask for help to get it recentered each time I threw the pack on, which isn't fun. So I have some things to rework there. It didn't help that the Prick 117 Golf radio was weighing down the assault pack, by the way. Yeah, that definitely made it more difficult. So it is what it is. The next thing I had an issue with was actually my radio pouch, that Beast Combat Systems radio pouch. I'm not sure how it happened, but at one point, like around hour 20, it unmollied itself from my chest rig. And I've never had that happen before, but if I had to take a wild guess, it probably got snagged on one too many branches or twigs or thorns or something like that. And it just worked itself loose over time. So I'll need to make sure that I keep an eye on that in the future. Also, my radio took a crap on me shortly after this happened. The volume output was super faint, like I had a really hard time hearing people on the radio, and there was also this constant clicking noise whenever I wasn't transmitting. Not sure what that's about, but because I'm using a Disco 32 PTT cable and a Disco 32 antenna, I figured I should call over there, and I spoke to Josh. So based on what he and his team were able to dig up, apparently this is a somewhat of a recurring issue with the Baofeng UV9R Pro radios. So he told me that he thinks the best radio at the moment for civilians is the Ailence HD2, and he has some great videos on that radio on his Disco 32 YouTube channel. But since my team primarily still uses Baofeng radios, I figured for the sake of continuity and compatibility, I would just stick with the Baofeng family. So now I'm running a UV9R Plus. They are the previous model to the UV9R Pro, so they're just a more tried and true model. Plus, it still uses that same PTT connector style as the UV9R Pro. So that means I did not have to go ahead and spend more money on another Disco 32 PTT cable. And I've had no issues with that radio so far. Last but not least, my blister kit. The athletic tape and the moleskin patches were pretty much useless. If I had some on my feet, as soon as my feet would start to sweat, they would slip off inside my socks. I know this is a minor thing, guys. That's why I wanted to save it for last, but I would bet you money if you tried out those NextCare waterproof bandages, they would stay on your feet longer and be just as comfortable as if you were using athletic tape or the moleskin patches. I swear by these things, guys. Just try them out. If you haven't already, try them out. And regarding my loadout, that's about it, guys. Overall, I was pretty happy with my loadout. I never got too uncomfortable out there. I had plenty of water, plenty of food, plenty of ammo, plenty of batteries, everything. And I was able to keep up with everyone when we did our ruck march infill. Some guys did feel the need to leave early, like there were plenty of dropouts, just like most 40-hour Milsim events, but I most certainly wasn't one of them. I stayed till the very end, and our Rosa faction kicked ass all the way until the end. The RealSim staff were exceptional. They were super knowledgeable and helpful and just genuinely nice guys. They really tried their hardest to keep players from dropping out. At one point, one of the staff members even let a player borrow one of his backup airsoft guns to keep them from leaving early. And personally, as someone who had zero RTO or JTACing experience before this event, I made plenty of mistakes, and I'm sure I asked what seemed like dumb questions, but they never made me feel bad or anything. Quite the opposite, actually. They were always encouraging and were genuinely excited to coach me because they could tell that I wanted to learn. And I stayed engaged. I was on the radio a lot, and I did call in a couple 9 lines. I only got one of those on camera. I didn't know what I was doing though. So one of the staff members came over to help me out. The other 9 line was actually a medevac request during that downed pilot mission. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have that one on camera, but that was a really cool one. Side note, and I didn't realize this before I bought my ticket, but the RealSim staff put on faction-specific trainings every week in the evenings as we led up to the event. And I learned a ton from these trainings. Like, if you are serious about Milsim and are trying to learn some real-world tactical skills, they went over things like battle drills, medical training, radio etiquette, calling in 9 lines, all sorts of cool stuff. And the week before the event, they gave our Rosa faction a complete virtual Warno. They did also do an in-person Warno on site before the event kicked off, but still, and I appreciate that as the RTO because I got to write down all my frequencies and challenge passphrases and also program those frequencies into my radio before I left my house. So I thought that was really cool. Another thing I really appreciated about the RealSim event was the use of real-world props. My Manpack radio is a great example of that for the RTO/JTAC role. Our platoon medic had to carry around a fully equipped medical bag, and so it was full of medical accessories, and I don't even know what the terms are for all the equipment that was inside that bag, but picture things like chest seals and tourniquets and gauze, all that kind of stuff, right? So he had to use those things to heal players at the casualty collection point, and he also had to use them during the down pilot mission. When we got to the down pilot, he had to provide medical care to that dummy, which was also really cool to see. And then lastly, there's the EOD. So our team's EOD had to carry around C4 type explosives and a detonator and a multi-tool. And then the other team's EOD carried around landmines, I didn't see a lot of action with the EOD, unfortunately. If he did get to blow some things up, sweet, but I unfortunately was not around for it. I also don't know if he had to disable any of the other team's explosives in the field, but yeah, those are some examples as to what kind of props you can expect to see at a RealSim event. And lastly, I liked that RealSim did their own AAR at the end of the event. They went ahead and asked for things like feedback from everyone that was there. They also did hand out some MVP awards. So all that being said, let's take a moment to discuss what I thought could have been better. Regarding the downed pilot mission, there was some miscommunication about how we were going to exfil that downed pilot. When we called in that 9-line medevac request, I thought I heard that we were going to go ahead and exfil the pilot by a helicopter. But it turns out we were going to exfil the down pilot by a ground vehicle. And this led to a lot of confusion on my part. Here's what I thought was supposed to happen. I thought we were going to, like I said, I thought we were going to get the down pilot over to this this safe area. Basically, we had to clear out a hot zone. So once we cleared out that hot zone and made sure there's no bad guys around, then a helicopter was going to come down and we were going to exfil the down pilot. And this is all role play. There wasn't really a helicopter. The helicopter was a van, but that's kind of what I was picturing. I thought we were going to have to go ahead and load the down pilot into a van. But actually what was supposed to happen is it was kind of 2 phases. Phase 1 was get the down pilot into this ground vehicle, which was a truck actually. And then at that point in time, that part of the mission is done. Pilot is safe, pilot is out of play, and then phase 2 of this section of the mission was going to be getting our guys into that hot zone, clearing it out, and then the van comes in and picks us all up and takes us back to the patrol base. Well, because I thought the pilot was still in play, I kept on saying, oh, we gotta get the pilot, we gotta get the pilot. And the rest of my team was kind of like, what? Or at least some of the staff was like, what? Looking at me like I didn't know what, like looking at me like I was confused. But I was just as confused as they were. There was that miscommunication, like I was saying. So I unfortunately did not get that medevac on camera, so I don't know what was said. I don't know what was actually supposed to happen. So I'm not going to point any fingers, really. It's not a big deal at the end of the time. At the end of the day, the mission was still awesome. We had a great time, and we got the down pilot out there. It was a mission success, and so I'm just going to leave it at this. Communication, guys. Communication is important. Last but not least, guys, we had to end that downed pilot mission a little bit early due to a safety concern that Camp Atterbury had. It is what it is. It wasn't that big of a deal. Like I said, it was the end of the mission. We didn't get to completely finish exfilling. That's all it was. Basically, Camp Atterbury called up the RealSim staff and told them to temporarily pause our event. Because keep in mind, guys, Camp Atterbury is an active military base. So there were other actual service members using other parts of the property to conduct their own trainings. And what happened is Camp Atterbury was worried about another nearby training bleeding over into the area that we were using for RealSim. And yeah, who would figure, guys? This is the pros and cons of playing on an active military base. Turns out, right, active military training trumps what we were doing with basically a LARP Airsoft event. It just is what it is. But of course, I wish we didn't have to end it early. We still got to go back out later that same night and do that special operations style raid on the compound. And that wraps up the after action report section of this video. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching till the end. I had a really great time at this RealSim event. RealSim's next event in our part of the USA, at least, is this September in Illinois. So you can count on seeing me and the rest of the White Horse guys there. And now the only question is, which role am I going to sign up for this time around? But I hope to see you there. Thanks so much for watching the After Action Report for Operation Hammer Forged. Like I said earlier, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have that first gameplay highlight video coming for you very soon. It hits the channel a week from today, so you don't want to miss that. In the meantime, once again, I'm Doc Lamau. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.